over 3 months ago, I posted a video about how I felt like a failure. And much of it was about, dieting and not being able to stick to a diet, not being able to stick to pretty much anything regarding eating or exercise or diets that were just very, very difficult to sustain. And I embarked basically at that point on a new health journey. And I'll try not to repeat too much of what I said in that video, because if you watch that video, this would be way too boring. And if you're interested in that, there is that video for you to reference. But I talk about the history that I've had trying a whole bunch of diets, the history that I've had with my weight fluctuating and things like that. And I was tempted at that point to start working out with a trainer, and was a little bit discouraged because I thought, am I just going to be going down the same path? Is this just going to be another section of this cycle where I hop on, some sort of diet or workout regime, and then it fades after 3-6 months or whatever, and I'm kind of back to where I am. Do I even want to go down that path? Why don't I just stay where I am? And I had a heart-to-heart with my husband, and he really encouraged me because he said, well, it sounds like you're giving up before you're even trying, which doesn't sound like you. And he said, isn't that kind of what life is about? You just keep trying. And I thought, yeah, he's right. For me to just defeat myself before I even started was, as I kind of vocalized it just seemed crazy. So I embarked on this journey. And so I wanted to share with you what I have learned, mostly about myself, but a lot of it is about my attitude around dieting and working out, and how it has changed tremendously from when I was younger, and how I feel so much more successful. And I know it's only been about 3.5 months, but I feel in such a healthy place, not just physically, but mentally. And I think this discussion that I'm going to have with you is a lot more about my mental change, and of course, how it's all related. But I do want to start by saying that I am not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a therapist, a nutritionist. I'm none of those things. I'm just me, and I'm just sharing with you what I've done to be successful for me. And that is it's going to look very different for everyone. Your goals are going to be very different probably from mine. Success is going to look very different for you compared to me. So I do feel in the best place that I ever have. I'm excited to share this stuff with you, but I do feel a little bit like I'm beating a dead horse, because as a woman, and I'm sure plenty of men out there as well, this is such a topic that has been talked about and torn apart and analyzed from every single angle. And what qualifies me to talk about this? And I just feel like, am I repeating what other people are saying, have said? Am I repeating what I've said? But I thought, now is a good time, because I feel in a really, really great place. The holidays are approaching, which is always really tough. And if I can help, one person kind of get comfortable or come to terms with where they are in their own journey, I will think that that is a complete success. So like I said, I just want to share, what has transpired in the past 3.5 months or so. The last 3 months have been basically the end result of what I had been doing for maybe the last year. At this point, I probably started late last year, and I wanted to touch upon, why I started this sort of shift now. And I think a lot of it probably has to do with the fact that I'm 50, and I was staring down that road to 50, and I really wanted to make some changes. It was really when I started to think, like, here I am again. I've tried a lot of, different diets. I don't feel healthy. I'm starting to feel just like winded walking upstairs. I felt like my heart rate was too elevated when I was working out. Like all of these signs, just feeling, I've thrown out my back, as you guys know, just these little signs that I'm like, oh my God, this is not what I want to do in terms of aging gracefully. I don't want to age at all in terms of any of this. I want to stay mobile. I want to stay active. I want to be comfortable in those things. I don't want everything to be like a like a strained kind of like motion or movement. I really want to stay young in terms of that. And so about a year ago, and many of you have asked me about this, and this is another thing I hesitate in talking about because I'm not an expert at this at all. But I want to talk a little bit about what I started doing at the end of last year I didn't realize this then, but it was basically to help me prepare for the changes that I made starting about 3.5 months ago. So I've talked about meditation on my channel before and how I practice meditation. It's something I try to do every morning. I don't get to it every morning. It's something that I started doing when I moved here to Las Vegas about 7 years ago. And it was something I started doing to like visualize my dream life. What was it? I felt really, really displaced in every way when we moved here to Las Vegas. That's a whole nother story, but I love New York. I still love New York. I miss New York. New York will always be my hometown. I feel like a New Yorker, and I enjoy Vegas. Vegas is great. Vegas has given me a wonderful life, and it's a beautiful place, and I enjoy my life here. But when I first moved here, I felt really displaced. I felt out of place. I still feel a little out of place. It was then that I kind of had to redefine my life. So anyway, that's why I started meditating. I was like, oh, I had started seeing like on YouTube all of these like abundance meditations and visualizations. And of course, I had always heard about and read, athletes that meditate. They visualize the win. They visualize catching the ball. They visualize hitting the ball. They crossing the finish line, whatever it is. But that's such a strong part of like sports psychology. And so I'd always heard about that. And so I thought, well, there's got to be something to this visualization business. And so that's how I started meditating. And it was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to sit down, close your eyes, and like dream up what you want to happen in the future. And so as I fell down this rabbit hole of meditation, I started following Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm not going to sing his praises. I'm not going to promote him in any way. I just want to because many of you have asked me like, well, what meditations do you follow? And like, what philosophies do you follow or whatever. He's the one that I follow the most. He's not the only one. But he's the one that was able to explain meditation to me, not personally, but explain it to me scientifically, because I'm not a very woo-woo, touchy-feely kind of person where I'm like, yes, I'm just going to meditate. That's not me. But when he explains it in a very scientific way, like what is actually happening in your brain and why it works, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, this is amazing. And so I do feel like I owe a lot to meditation, like the life that I have and the life I feel like I have created. We can talk about that in another video. But that's how I started meditating. And one of Dr. Joe Dispenza's, he has a lot of different types of meditation. Obviously, he has visualizations, he has abundance meditations, but a lot of his meditations is about change. And then he has a lot of meditations which is related, but for like patients, people that have medical issues, medical conditions they want to change that. And so I started listening to his like change meditations, and I was like, oh, okay, well, sure. No one's perfect, right? There's always something I can change. And I would listen to them every once in a while. But up until like late last year, I was really about visualizing an abundance. Because who doesn't like to sit down, close their eyes, and just dream up their dream life? So when I started to think, again, like late last year, and I was staring down the road to 50, I started to think about how here I was again. I was kind of, eating whatever I wanted, just kind of having fun with it, and not really in a place where I felt great physically, and not really in a place where I felt like I was in control of my eating. And I think feeling like you have control over your eating is important. I think it's really important. I think it can also become very dangerous. Again, I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not going to talk too much about that, but I just really felt like out of control. Like I was just kind of like eating stuff and being like, what did I just eat? Why did I eat that? And I just don't like feeling that way. I'm like, what's the point? I didn't even enjoy it. So I started meditating on this change. I started kind of listening to these meditations based on changing something. And so I was like, I really want to change my relationship with food and the way I think about food and the way I think about fitness and health and all of it. And it was a very long road. I mean, like I said, I started at the end of last year, and it was only about 3.5 months ago where I felt like all of my meditations were actually coming to the surface, for lack of a better phrase. It was all kind of like rising up out of me. And, the first part, and, again, I don't want to get too into it because, again, I'm not an expert, but for like the first few months of meditating, I really wanted to pinpoint what it was about food. Why was that my thing? I have been able to kick a lot of things, like cigarette smoking. I stopped drinking, but that actually wasn't very difficult for me. It just didn't sit well with me anymore. But, there's similarities between alcohol and food because it's socially acceptable. And so sometimes it's strange when you're at a party and someone offers you a glass of wine. You say, no, that's okay, I'll just have water. There's a lot of stigma to that. So anyway, I really wanted to pinpoint what it was about food. I really don't want to bore you with like too many of the specifics, but I think it is very important to kind of pinpoint like the origin of your relationship with food and what molded it. And for me, it was a lot about my upbringing. And, I grew up with Chinese parents from China who immigrated by way of Taiwan. And, the child of an immigrant experience is a very unique one. And, so much of my upbringing was you have to assimilate, but at the same time, they want you to hold on to your roots as well. So anyway, a lot of the assimilation is really, really grounded in don't stand out, don't make a fuss, just lay low. Just lay low, just blend in. And I think that resulted in me not showing a lot of emotion. That was another thing that, my parents would emphasize. They were always very into like controlling your emotions. And I mean, to put it simply, I think I used my food for that. And I always tried to think, gosh, do I eat when I'm happy? Like, am I a celebratory eater? Or do I eat when I'm stressed out? And do I eat when I'm sad? I couldn't figure it out. And I realized that I ate all the time because it was every emotion that I was trying to dampen. If I was too sad, I would eat to lift my spirits. If I was too happy, I would eat to lower my spirits. There's that very loose connection between, I think, my upbringing and how I dealt with it, and I dealt with it with food. I came to this realization after a lot of meditating because it took me a while to realize that I was trying to just flatline my emotions. It took me a while to even realize that. It took me a while to realize why I was trying to do that. And I thought to myself, wow, okay, so if I kind of let myself emote a little bit more, maybe I won't need to eat as much. And so I kind of, went through my days following this realization, doing that. But it didn't really help that much. I didn't really change the way I ate that much, but it was good to recognize it. It was very, very eye-opening. And again, I feel like I learned so much about myself, doing these meditations, and really kind of like tackling this one issue that I feel like has just been with me like my entire life. So I realized that once, okay, I came to this realization, but I'm still reaching for food. And I realized that simply I had just developed and honed and created and have lived with these habits for decades now. I've just created these habits just things as easy as like, oh, when I have a video uploading and I'm just sitting there staring at my computer, I would get up and go to the kitchen, open the refrigerator, walk into the pantry. I remember in high school, if I was studying and I was, oh, let me take a break, get up, go to the kitchen. It was just a habit that I started developing. Having recognized why I ate didn't really help this particular problem. It didn't really help me breaking these habits. Do you know what I mean? These are just day-to-day, minute-to-minute habits that I had formed. For whatever reason, but they were here now. And I thought, well, shoot, I have to change these actual habits. And there are specific meditations that Dr. Joe Dispenza has that is about change. And there's one, it's 60 minutes, it's a commitment, but it's an hour long. And so I started doing these pretty much every single day because I was like, I need to change this habit. I need to break this, whatever it is. And I was meditating on it to the point where, as the weeks went by, I could tell that I was stopping myself earlier and earlier before getting to that refrigerator or getting to that pantry. And I was also starting to recognize other habits, other associations that I had created with food. And one that really sticks out to me because I just created it, it was after I moved here to Las Vegas because I had no chance of developing this particular habit when I lived in New York. And that was every time I got in my car, it was like, ooh, what drive-through could I go to? And I remember when I first moved here, I was like, why are people so obsessed with the drive-through? It takes longer. I'd always park and walk in. I was like, what's the deal? So it took just a couple of years for me to get really into the drive-through. I think actually it was the pandemic. And that was one. And so I started to realize that when I was in my car and I was driving down certain stretches of road, that I would all of a sudden have a really quick passing thought like, ooh, what about McDonald's? Ooh, why don't you stop into Starbucks? Ooh, there's Habit Burgers right there. Maybe stop in for, I wouldn't even be hungry. It wouldn't even be mealtime. It would just be because I was in the car on a specific part of a road. And I was like, wow, I have a lot more habits surrounding food and when I want to get food and when I react with getting food, whatever it is. I had a lot of habits that I need to kind of unravel. And so, the meditation basically, I feel like it lifted a fog. I feel like we are on autopilot for most of our lives. We probably have the same morning routine. We take the same way to work every day. I have the same, things that I do throughout the day. Like we're on autopilot. And a lot of that is great, right? It creates efficiency in our lives. But a lot of it is like, why am I doing this? Or like, what's going on? And so the meditations really helped me break those habits. It was not easy. It's not easy. It's not like this, woo, like I'm completely like hypnotized and ta-da, like I'm a changed person. It's not that, but it just wakes you up a little bit sooner. I would always wake up after finishing half a bag of chips. I'd be like, oh my, what am I doing? Like, oh, I feel sick. I shouldn't have eaten those, right? How often do we say that? I feel sick. I shouldn't have eaten those. And then you put it away. I'm like, I need to get to that point earlier. And the meditations have really helped with that. So with, that mental work that I did, and then I was starting to feel like, I need to work out with a trainer. I made my failure video. Working out with a trainer has really kind of like propelled me down the right path. And it's just been so great. For me, it's not about losing weight. For me, it's not about getting into a specific size dress. I mean, I'm laughing because in the past, maybe not the recent past, but like when I was younger, 20s and 30s, that's all it was about. Losing 25 pounds. It was always some magical number. And looking back, I'm always just like, it's so idiotic. Some magical number, those last 5 pounds. It was never enough. The size was never small enough. I wanted to be a size 6. When I reached that, then I wanted to be a size 4. Then I reached that, and I just couldn't, I couldn't get any smaller. And then forget it. Then it was just, I'm a failure. And then I would just, start gaining weight again or whatever. And I knew that if my goal was about my physical appearance, I knew that I was setting myself up for failure again. I knew that I would not be breaking my cycle of starting and stopping, that I would just be continuing. I'd be doing the same thing. And why would I do that? For me, it was about maintaining a level of mobility, maintaining a level of health. There are some numbers that I have noticed, like when I go to my stride class, my treadmill class, you wear like a heart rate monitor. And during the class, you run, you sprint, you stop and you walk, you run again, you walk, you use a hill, whatever it is. But the point is you're going up and down. You're bringing your heart rate up, you're bringing it back down, you're recovering, and then you're going back or whatever. My heart rate would just stay up between like the 90 to over 100% of my max heart rate. It would just stay up. And so I wasn't recovering. And that is not a good sign for health, overall health, especially your heart. And heart disease is the number one killer of people. I know people are obsessed with cancer and not getting cancer, and that's a huge problem as well. But heart disease is the biggest killer. And I thought, and there is heart disease in my family, and I thought, gosh, I need to take care of my heart. I smoked so much when I was younger. And so I have, lost some weight. And I've noticed that my heart rate, when I go run now, it recovers. It comes down and then it goes up and it comes down. And that to me is so, so much more gratifying and meaningful and significant than the number on the scale changing. I know it's related. I'm not dumb. I know losing weight has helped with that, but for me, it can't be about that. That's too short term. It's too mentally draining as well. But to see my heart rate improving, that to me is like, I'm doing something, So that's what I had to focus on. So that's a number I focus on. I have a smart bed. It's a sleep number bed. And so I get a sleep IQ number in the morning, and that fluctuates because sometimes, with everything going on, hormonal and all that stuff, I don't sleep through the night sometimes or whatever, but there is a number on there, and it's related to that same number in my treadmill class. It's like HRV or something. It's basically how your heart rate recovers from things. And it's, if it's not a good number, my Sleep IQ app will tell me like, you're stressed. These are some things to do to reduce your stress. It'll improve this number or whatever. And that number has been improving over the past few months. So I'm really, really happy about that. And so these are the things that I had to focus on in terms of my goal. And my trainer actually just asked me, he's like, so what's your goal? And I said, did he ask me specifically what my weight goal was? I can't even remember. He said something like, what's your goal, or what's your goal weight, I think is what he asked me. And I said, I don't have one. I said, I just want to stay healthy, strong, I want to do weights, all the things. So personally, that's why I started doing what I was doing. I think approaching 50 was a big deal, and, maintaining mobility and improving my overall health was the biggest thing for me. I am not going to sit here and bullshit you that I'm like completely above looking better, getting into a smaller size or whatever. Of course. I'm part of this world. I'm part of this society. Of course, it's nice to be complimented. Like, wow, you look great. Did you lose weight or whatever? Or like, wow, you look like you've lost weight. Now, we should never be commenting on anyone else's body, first of all. But yes, the reality of the situation is, of course, it feels really, really nice to be complimented. But it cannot be about that for this journey. It can't be my sole focus or my main focus, because it's never worked. It's never worked for me in the past. So that's where I'm coming at this from, and that's sort of like what has led me up to that video that I made a while back, my failure video. So now I just want to talk about like what has happened over the past 3.5 months. So I have lost 20 pounds, which again, great, awesome. Just not focusing on that. I'm like, okay, that's just simply a result of me doing healthier things. It's like the number on the screen. It's like the number in my sleep app. That's it. I can't make it a goal, and I can't get so excited about like, oh my God, I lost 20 pounds. Then what? It just can't be an endpoint for me. So anyway, I've lost 20 pounds and I have been lifting heavy weights with my trainer. So I specifically picked this trainer because he trains bodybuilders. And he also came very highly recommended by my very good friend here, whose body is completely transformed. She looks like a bodybuilder, even though she's, not even 100% in it, but she's like really, really defined, muscular, strong. She looks amazing, absolutely amazing. And so I was like, okay. And I thought that would be awesome. Like if I could actually see some muscle definition, that would be amazing, because I feel like I've been working out my entire life and never having seen muscle definition. So that would be an amazing sort of result out of all of this. I haven't gotten there yet. I think it takes a while, but that's fine. So that's what I'm doing with my trainer. That's, I would say, probably the biggest change in terms of like working out that I've made, because I've been very, very cardio focused for the past 15 years. It's just, I like to do it. I like running, I like rowing, I like walking. Anything cardio, I'm down. I can do it. I'm a long distance runner. Great. And so weights have just fallen off like more and more as each year goes by. I used to do a lot of weight training. In high school is when I started, and didn't really do much in college. And then I did it again, after college or whatever, joined a gym and I got back into it. But yeah, it just fell off. So it feels really good to be back in the gym, just simple movements like a bicep curl, a row, a leg press. Like it feels good. It feels really, really good. And another thing I get excited about, which really, is one of those things that's kind of like, not a goal, but like it's what keeps me going, is when I can add weight on. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting stronger. Or working out with him and not being sore for like 3 days afterwards, or just not being sore after. I'm like, oh my God, like I'm actually improving. It's nice. It's really, really nice. And those are the things that keeps me going now, not like getting on that scale. Like these are the things that are really important to me. So that's the major change that I've made in terms of working out. I am still going to Pilates once a week. I was going twice a week. I brought that down to twice a week. And I'm doing like a stride class, which is just on the treadmill once a week. And then I'm doing weight training the other times, and then I have a full rest day. That's, of course, the ideal week. Not every week is the same. So the biggest challenge for me was that, wow, this is hard to like organize my thoughts. So I travel quite a bit, which is disruptive to anyone's routine. And I also had this mentality, and I mentioned this in my failure video, that once I started eating, I couldn't stop. I have no portion control, and like this beast kind of arises in me. And I started to realize that a lot of it is physical, because food is very, very addicting. And one thing I learned is that I think I've been underestimating the power of food for all these years. I just thought it's food. You just stop eating it. But there really is a very highly addictive quality to sugar, to fats, to salt. All those, the combination of those things, very highly addictive. And I kept thinking that I'm weak, that I'm the one that can't just say no to a burger. And I've just been underestimating food this whole time. It is like a drug. And I think once I gave it that respect, once I gave it that power, I think I was able to really accept the fact that like I needed to treat my relationship with food and how I ate. I really had to take it like seriously, not just like an all or nothing elimination diet sort of thing. Like I really had to take it kind of seriously. So that was also kind of like a revelation that I came to. So another like huge, this is probably the biggest revelation that I've had over the past 3.5 months. And I know most of you are going to be like, duh. But it was something I had to experience, and it's just something I do. I like kind of create rules in my head. I was just always that person, like if I went on a diet and I cheated, it was all over. It was all over. I couldn't go back the next day. I cheated. It's over. I suck. I'm a failure. And when I started working out with this trainer, I had all of these trips coming up, and I told him, can we start in September because I have all these trips, whatever. And he said, okay. He's like, I think we should start now. You're here now. You were brought here for a reason. Like, let's start now. And I said, okay, but I feel like if we're going to have a lot of false starts or whatever. He was like, look, this is life. He's like, you travel, right? Because I told him that was one of my pain points, that I travel and it's very disruptive. And I said, yeah, I travel. He's like, then this is life. He's like, see me when you can. And so I saw him once before I went away to Knoxville in Rhode Island for the wedding, and I was going to be with family, and I knew that was going to be like a disaster. I was like, oh God, I'm just going to be eating whatever. But, my trainer, he's great, by the way. You have to find a trainer that really works with you. Just FYI, don't just go to the first one if you don't feel super comfortable with the person. Anyway, he was great. He was like, look, it's life, right? He's like, while you're away, he's like, try and work out once. He's like, if you have cake, have half the slice. He was like, just try and work with it. He was really reasonable. And I thought, okay, I can do that. And so before I left for Knoxville and Rhode Island, he didn't even give me a nutrition plan at that point. I had worked out with him once, and he said, just try and work out once while you're there, which I did because my cousin had a gym in her house. So I worked out. I was like, great. I didn't go like crazy at the wedding. Maybe subconsciously his voice was in my head. I didn't go crazy at the wedding. I tried to be sensible, if you will. And then I came home. I probably worked out with him 2-3 more times. And then he gave me the nutrition plan. And so I followed that while I was home. I was just making the food at home. And then I went away to New York for almost 2 weeks. And I was staying with a friend, so I could cook. And so I went grocery shopping, and I, cooked some of my meals. But we went out a lot, There's a whole community of friends there. We were at this person's house, this person's house. We were always out doing stuff. We were enjoying things. One of my absolute favorite ice creams is by that house, is Belleville Farms, if you guys are interested. And so I had ice cream. We had pizza one night. We went over for Labor Day another night and had like barbecue and macaroni salad and cupcakes. And then we went out for a really nice birthday dinner. This actually was a birthday brunch, this birthday meal this one day. And I was like, oh my God. But, in between then I was cooking my food at my friend's house, eating that and trying to do a little bit of both, right? And when I came home, my trainer was like, let's weigh you. And I thought, oh God, I probably gained like 10 pounds. I get on the scale, and I worked out a couple times while I was in New York, I should mention. I probably worked out like 3 times. I went to my friend's gym with him. So when I got home and I did a weigh-in with him, it had probably been about a month since I had my first meeting with him, like my consultation with him. It had probably been about a month. And I had lost 5 pounds. And he was like, okay. He's like, so you weren't that bad in New York. Because I told him, I was like, oh, it was pretty bad or whatever. And my hope was that I just kind of maintained my weight. But I lost 5 pounds. And I was like, really? I was shocked. And I think my trainer saw the look on my face. I was like, wow. And he was like, what? Like what? He didn't know what my confusion was. And I was like, I told him, I was like, I had ice cream. I had pizza. I had, I'm like just listing out all the things he had. He was like, okay. He's like, did you have those things like every day for every meal? And I was like, no. I was like, I cooked or whatever. Whenever I cooked. But I'm like, but we went out like plenty. And he was like, look, one slice of pizza isn't going to make you unhealthy, and one salad isn't going to make you healthy. He's like, you just have to eat well most of the time. And that was so eye-opening to me that I could lose weight but not be like a maniac about it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I was skeptical even at that point. I was like, okay, whatever. So fast forward, I did 2 small trips in October. If you guys remember, I went to Dallas for a couple days and then I went to LA. When you travel, it isn't nearly impossible. I had airport food. It was pretty good during the day because I was stuck in like meetings or whatever. And then, for dinner, it was sort of like, well, whatever everyone else is doing kind of a thing. And I tried to eat a little bit less or whatever. And then I lost some more weight when I got home. And I thought, wow. I can't believe it that this is like actually working. And I'm sure a lot of it has to do with like the training sessions that I was having with him, like in between when I was home. But like I said, I've always worked out. I guess I wasn't working out correctly. I think weightlifting does help like burn calories or whatever, but I was doing a lot of cardio. It was just this new way of eating. And I just had never thought that it could work. I never ever thought that just eating mostly that way would work. I thought I had to eat that way all the time. And so you guys know my birthday has come. My friend came, she made me a cake. Definitely had some of that cake. We went out to eat. I've had another friend, my friend Jen, come visit. We definitely went out to eat. And I feel like my eyes have been opened for the first time where I'm like, oh my God, like I don't need to eat this way all the time, just most of the time. It really is eye-opening. I feel like I'm stating the obvious. I feel like I'm saying something and explaining something that most of you have known your entire lives, but this was kind of new for me. And it's like I made up this weird rule in my head, like you have to eat that way all the time, otherwise forget it. And I tend to do that a lot. I'm like an all or nothing kind of person, and it has not served me well. And so even the word like consistency has been completely redefined for me. I'm realizing that it's about most of the time. It's about if you do something most of the time, you are actually being consistent. Like I guess my whole framing and timeline for the word consistent has really, really grown. And now I kind of laugh to myself whenever, I don't know, someone sees me eat the way I eat at home, which is, pretty plain. It'll be like chicken breast over greens or whatever. I am always ask the question, well, how long are you going to eat that way? It's like, I'm going to eat this way most of the time. It's not going to be for every meal, every single day. It's just most of the time. So it really has been I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders now that I've come to this. Not only have I come to this realization, but I've seen it happen. Because like I said, I've lost 20 pounds just eating that way most of the time. And by eating that way, I mean, and I can't give you details of the nutrition plan because that's my trainer's business. But my calorie intake every day is probably between 12 and 1400 calories. And I really try and just have a nice mixture of protein, carbs, and, a little bit of fat, not too much fat. Again, he trains bodybuilders, so they really cut out a lot of fat. And I really like to try and stick to like single ingredient food. So like sweet potato, chicken breast, salad, leaves of whatever variety, coffee, salmon, whitefish. Like I really try and keep it to whole foods. I guess that's what the Whole30, that's like one diet I never did, the Whole30 diet. I really try and keep it to those things. And, I've made some changes that were not easy. I used to use a lot of cream and milk in my coffee. Love it. And my trainer was like, just drink your coffee black. And I was like, okay. And it took me a while. I would say after about a month, now I love my coffee. Now I love my black coffee. Now I can't even imagine it with cream. I just love the taste of like the black coffee. But I when I think about it, I'm like, okay, I used to pour quite a bit of milk in my coffee. I really liked a lot of milk and cream. And if I had 3 cups of coffee a day, very standard for me, that's an extra 100 calories, 150 calories. And if I'm only having 12 to 1400 calories, that's a big percentage of calories. So yeah, so just little changes like that. And having a big breakfast has really helped as well. But I do want to mention another thing that has really, really helped me, and hopefully it helps someone out there. There's all this talk about intermittent fasting, and I have no doubt that it works for a ton of people, that it is very, very biologically beneficial to some people, maybe diabetics. I understand the concept that it lets your body rest and kind of reset, but that did not work for me. And I think I mentioned this in my failure video where, if I let myself get that hungry and I tried intermittent fasting, I would skip breakfast basically. So I'm like, okay, I fast all night, skip breakfast. So you tack on another like 6 hours or whatever. And then I would eat at lunch at noon. Let me try that. Let me see how I'd feel. I felt terrible, like terrible. By noon, I was like just a raging like psychopath. Like I would, and I don't make good choices because I'm in this heightened emotional state. And so I'd be like, I'm just going to get pizza. I'm just going to get McDonald's. I'm just going to go out and grab, Five Guys. I'm just going to get ramen, whatever was fast. It was like, because I was so hungry. And so I think the best thing I've done is follow this nutrition plan that my trainer has set, because he's like, eat every 3 to 4 hours. So I'm eating before I get hungry. Just 100-calorie snack or whatever, or 200-calorie meal, something really light. But I just keep at this pace, and I never get hungry. I never am starving. I'm never like in this mode of desperation for some food, and it has made a world of difference. I mean, huge, huge, huge. It's like, don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry. It's the same idea. And again, I really underestimated how much of a mental effect food and the timing, like all that stuff had on me. I was really underestimating it, but I really turned into a different person when I got really, really hungry. And I was really diminishing the power that the food had over like the hormones in my body and everything that was going on. And I just felt like I was a weak person. But I was just having like a biological response to a very low, blood sugar level probably, and being hungry and whatever the case is. Yeah, just eating often has really, really helped. And I did make some notes. I just wanted to mention just a few mentality changes I had to make surrounding eating. One is that like not every meal has to be the most delicious, best tasting meal in the entire world. I mean, no, again, I don't want to eat this way all the time, but I have a couple dinners to look forward to in December. I've made some reservations at some new restaurants here in Vegas. I'm very excited. I'm waiting for Mishmas so I can film it or whatever. But like now I have like meals to look forward to. And yeah, and not every meal needs to be like a celebration of life. It's just a meal. And again, I can keep this sort of attitude so long as I don't get too hungry. So that was one kind of like mental shift, because right, we always think like, oh, well, what's good? I have to eat something that's good. And it's like, well, why? It's just lunch on a Tuesday. Like, who cares? So that's been a mental shift for me, and that's been really, really good for me. And I used it as a reward. It was always a little bit like something I was entitled to. Like, well, I had a hard day, so I deserve like a delicious meal. I mean, what that equates to is basically like, I'm gonna do something really bad for my body, even though I'm trying to reward it. And I know there's a lot of mental steps in between there that need to be changed and kind of fixed. But, the more I thought about that, the more I'm like, well, that's really, I should not be rewarding myself or feeling entitled to something that's not good for me, like after a long day, or if I've done something, or use it as a reward. I'm like, I have to stop that for sure. It's something that I can enjoy. Food, a good meal, it's something that I can enjoy. It's something I can look forward to. But it really, I have to remove that like entitlement from it, that like, well, I deserve a good meal because I've had a hard day. That kind of mentality, it had to go for me. And that has helped a lot, where I'm like, no, I'm not entitled to this. This is not, I don't reward myself with shitty food because I've had a bad day. It doesn't even make sense when you break it down. So I've stopped doing that. And I think those are like most of the mental changes that I had to make. And, I'm just going to say this again because I can't emphasize this enough, but meditation is really what has helped me not just recognize these thoughts, these habitual thoughts, but they've helped me change them. They've helped me like break that habit, like the habit of rewarding myself, right? We do it all the time. Like, oh God, I don't feel like cooking. I've had such a shitty day. I'm just going to get something good to eat, whatever it is, fill in the blank. And the meditation has stopped me before I get to that point. And it gets easier and easier every time you break that habit. Every time you break that cycle, it does get easier. But I really couldn't have done it without the meditation. I could not have done it. I can't do this without my trainer and his guidance. I definitely, it's not always, I'm not someone that like has a hard time asking for help. I'm not that person. But sometimes it's hard to really not just ask for help. And I feel like, again, I'm saying something very, very obvious, but I think we all need to hear this. Sometimes it's not just asking for the help, it's actually accepting it. So whenever I go to my trainer, I turn my brain off and I say, I'm just gonna do whatever he says. I'm gonna do whatever he says. He wants me to plank for a minute, I plank for a minute. He wants me to do 20 leg raises, I do 20 leg raises. He adds on more weight, I just keep doing it. Because you can't ask for the help and then be like, no. I don't want to do that. So I think I touched on everything that you guys have asked me about over the past few months. Meditation, the weight loss, food and training and all of that kind of stuff. There's one thing I do want to mention. It's kind of related, it's loosely related. And it's a comment that I've gotten a lot, not just over the past 3.5 months, maybe a little bit more, but I want to say over the past couple of years. And I just want to go back to the fact that my goal in all of this is not to be, a size 4. My goal in all of this is not to be like 115 pounds. Like, I could not care less. I've gotten so many comments to the effect of, it's not a perfect quote, but to the effect of, you've lost some weight now, why don't you wear smaller clothes? First of all, I feel like that insinuates that I was wearing larger clothes because I was a larger person. That's not the case. I've always worn oversized clothing, no matter what my size is. And it's not only an unwanted comment, but this is my style. And it has absolutely nothing to do with my body size. I like wearing clothing that is proportionately larger to me. So if one day I do end up 120 pounds, let's say 115 pounds, and a size medium looks this big on me, the way this, whatever this is, then I will get a medium. But there's a certain proportion that I like. There's a certain level of oversizedness that I like, and that is my style. And I feel like people are missing the fact that people have style, an actual style, how they like things worn, a certain cut, a certain fit, a look, a vibe. All of these things are completely missed in comments like that. And not only should we not be like commenting on any of that kind of stuff to someone else. So I just want to bring that point home, that like the way I wear my clothing has nothing, and maybe you guys should think about this too, it should not have anything to do with how your body looks. Like, if I lose a bunch of weight, am I going to start wearing like super tight fitting clothing? No. Why would I completely change up my style because I've lost weight? That, to me, that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. If you're someone that's always wanted to wear really tight clothing, you just haven't felt comfortable doing so, and then you've lost weight and you're like, oh my God, now I feel comfortable doing so. That's amazing. That is amazing. That's great. I have never wanted to wear provocative, tight-fitting clothes. So why would I start now, just no matter what size I'm at? So it's like, think about someone's style before you comment. And I know, you're drowning in your clothes. Okay. I don't understand why that would bother someone else. So I know this was not really related to our initial conversation, but it is in a way, because it has to do with our bodies. It has to do with like how we think about them, especially as women, and how you have to give yourself the freedom to do what you want, to dress how you want, to look how you want. The same people that tell me my clothing is too big is probably telling someone who is, overweight, that their clothing is too tight. It's the same people. So I hope this video was helpful to anyone who may have been in the same boat as me. I do feel really, really, like I said, I don't want to say I feel optimistic about the future or whatever. I always have. I love this. I love this new journey that I'm on. It's too corny for me. I just feel like a weight, haha, no pun intended, but a weight has been lifted from me, just kind of creating and developing this new relationship with food. It's been so good for me. It's been so good for my soul. So anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.